Early on in my monster truck career, I was given the task of driving the Great Clips Mohawk Warrior monster truck. And we had Great Clips on as a brand new sponsor of the truck. And the very first event I went to was in Minneapolis at the Viking Stadium. And the Monster Jam was there to perform, and we had about 40,000 people in the seats. And Monster Jam instructed me saying, hey, look, we have Great Clips in the house, 300 people from the corporate office. The president of Great Clips will be here. We want you to do a backflip. And I said, okay, well, I've never done one before. They said, well, go find somebody, one of the other drivers, and just kind of ask them how to do it. So I said, okay, that's a great plan. I went to a guy named Scott. I don't think I ever saw Scott crash on a backflip attempt ever. And I thought he was a really good person to ask about how to complete one of these. He said, look, Bryce, you're going to be fine. You know what you're doing. He said, as soon as you turn and face that backflip obstacle, you need to pick a spot the size of a quarter and focus on that all the way in. As soon as your front tires touch that obstacle, you need to give it 100% throttle so the truck will bounce off of the box. And as soon as you see dirt come back into your field of view, let off of the throttle and hit the brakes and hope you land it. I said, that sounds great. Well, Monster Jam went to the Great Clips president and said, hey, we got great news. Bryce is going to do his first ever backflip, and it's going to be right here tonight in front of you guys. And they sent me out. Well, as soon as I turned the corner, I did exactly what Scott told me to do to a T. I kind of steadied the truck, approached the backflip obstacle, focused on one spot, hit the throttle when I hit the box, and all of a sudden the truck just flopped on its roof. It never went very high up into the air, went into any sort of rotation. And I crashed, and I joke about how it was not a backflip, it was a backflop. And apparently the president of Great Clips leans over to our Monster Jam contact and says, well, you could tell it was his first one. And I just remember hearing that story later thinking, oh, great. You know, brand new sponsor, brand new setup here with a truck. And man, our sponsors are already embarrassed. It was just a terrible start to that relationship is how it felt. But what happened is I went back and looked at all the video because I could not figure out why I did not bounce up into the air. And what took place is as soon as I turned the corner and I picked that spot to focus on, the backflip obstacle all the way in, I kind of brought my left foot up near the brake pedal to steady my movement and steady the truck as I approached it. The problem is I never dropped my foot back away from that brake pedal. And so what I did not know is really what cost me the moment. And isn't that true in corporate America? What we don't know usually costs us the most. I was not prepared for how much of an abrasive hit it would be whenever I hit that metal container and how rough and abrupt that hit would be. And so my foot being close to the brake pedal, as soon as the truck hit that obstacle, it threw my left foot forward just enough to tap that brake pedal and kill all of my momentum. And that's why I went into a back flop instead of a back flip. Now, I started to realize that this was such an easy connection as a business principle because I see so many teams out there, so many members of a team, that they approach business, they approach their careers the exact same way, with one foot on the gas, the throttle, and one foot on the brake. That brake pedal for them is a plan B. It's a safety net. It's them saying to themselves, if this doesn't work out, if my team doesn't perform, if my organization doesn't grow, what is my backup plan going to be? And what happens is they go into something that's tough as they're growing and pursuing things, and it hits a little harder than they expected, and they quickly pull the ripcord. They quickly hit the brake pedal thinking, oh, you know what, I'm going to jump ship. And it ends up having way worse effects on themselves personally and their self-belief. It affects their careers more than they thought it would. And I came to realize for myself that the way that you have to drive a monster truck is in full commitment mode all the time. And it's not about having half commitments, because half commitments can actually, just like a backflip in one of those trucks, can be more dangerous than a full commitment. And so we have to approach our careers and our businesses and our dreams, ambitions the exact same way, going all in on plan A, and realizing that a full commitment is actually less of a risk than anybody else taught us growing up. Teams that are half committed in the corporate space all tend to behave a certain way. They always tend to make half commitments, but also half decisions. They tend to not want to go all in on the project that they're on because they're kind of afraid that they'll either get corrected or that they'll be wrong. They have no confidence in themselves, the confidence in their abilities and in their role. And they also don't have confidence that the business that they're participating in is going to go and accomplish the thing that they're set out to go and accomplish. They don't believe that that 6 to 18 month trajectory that company is trying to grow towards, they are not confident that they're actually going to hit those marks. You start to see that by body language. You start to see that in meetings where no one's really speaking up. If they do speak up, it's very half-hearted and they're not kind of wanting to grab the bull by the horns and say, yep, I will go and lead that. They might throw out some half-hearted ideas, but they're afraid that someone's going to look at them and say, okay, yep, you go run point on that. And that's how this thing is going to help our company get to where we believe that we're growing to go and grow into over the next 6 to 18 months. And so there's a massive delay in confidence and the ability for people to actually own their roles and see how their roles go and influence the broader team and the success of that organization as a whole. There are executives in the corporate space that sometimes misunderstand this engagement gear and think it's just about motivation. And it's not about motivation, it's about confidence. There are so many employees in this world that are waiting on permission to win. They're waiting for someone to kind of tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, it's your time, it's your turn to step up. The reason why people do not give themselves permission to win, though, is because they are not confident in one of two reasons or areas, or both. They may not be confident in either of these areas. Number one, do they clearly understand their role in the team? And number two, do they clearly understand and believe that their role is going to help the organization get to where the leadership has set that vision and those goals of where the organization is going? You see, they may know their role, but they may not think that the company can actually hit those targets that's been set out for the next 6 to 18 months. You have to have both sides of that same coin in order for the quarter to get the gumball from the gumball machine, if that makes sense. One side is, do I understand my role and am I confident in my position on the team? And am I confident on the flip side of that coin that my role has a direct influence on achieving our company's goals and where it's going? That is huge. And so what starts to happen is when people have those two questions answered, their confidence grows in what they're doing every single day. The resistance goes away and they realize it's not about motivation, it's about position. It's about positioning that person to draw that line in the sand and say, nope, you know what? We are going to win. I know how we're going to win, and I believe that this organization is going to win the way that leadership says we're going to. That is the biggest difference with this engagement gear that everyone needs to find. The real cost, a lot of times the hidden cost of half commitments that organizations don't necessarily see coming is turnover. Turnover. Think about it. If an employee does not believe in their role with clarity and understanding what their role does in the bigger picture, and they do not believe that their role has a direct impact in where the organization is going long term, then they start to look elsewhere. They start to look for a plan B. They start to look for a backup plan because they don't believe that in 6 to 18 months, what leadership has set out for the team to accomplish is actually able to be accomplished. So no wonder they start looking around, finding their safety net and bringing that foot up near that brake pedal because, hey, this team's about to attempt a backflip. And if we don't really get everything executed the right way and this doesn't go in the right direction and we don't achieve what we have been told that we need to go and achieve from leadership, I need a backup plan. And they rest that foot up near that brake pedal and then they perform a backflop instead of a backflip. That is the real cost. You will end up having more turnover in your team if you do not get this engagement gear correct.